Get ready for adventure. Islands of it, man. From the studios to Volcano Bay, this is the Universal Joint, a podcast devoted to all things Universal, with your host, Jim Hill and Dustin Foos.
Welcome to the Universal Joint podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill. My co-host Dustin Foos and I are recording the show on Friday, February 22nd, 2019, which is just a day after the Universal Orlando Resort finally went public with both a name and an opening date for the least secret theme park attraction in the history of man. Given this ride is being built just down the hill from the Wizarding World Hogsmeade Village, we already knew that this theme ride was going to be Harry Potter themed. Given that the spot that the attraction that was being built on had previously been occupied by the Dragon Challenge ride, and that Wizarding World Tour ride was just a lightly rethemed version of an opening day of Island Adventure attraction, Dueling Dragons. So we knew it was a coaster. I mean, obviously we knew it was a coaster, but because for the past 9 months we've been watching the on-site construction team use cranes to winch the track into place. After months and months and months of speculation, we have a name, we have an opening date. So Dustin, tell them the name, tell them the opening date.
So the name itself is Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure. Mm-hmm. It will be shortened to Hagrid's from this point forward. I will bet that no one will ever use that name in its entirety, but it basically says exactly what it is. It's a motorbike adventure where you get to see magical creatures. So it makes sense. Okay. And it looks like the opening date is actually only a couple of months away. We're talking about June 13th of 2019. So yeah, about 4 months out.
They will be shortening it to Hagrid's, largely because 3 to 5 minute walk away is the Jurassic Park River Adventure. Mm-hmm. And again, both of these adventure attractions are located inside of Islands of Adventure. So that could get confusing real fast. To be fair here, I always thought it was a little on the nose that in Adventureland at Disneyland Park in California, you could go on the Indiana Jones adventure. That always seemed kind of Department of Redundancy department to me. So you and I both know from the aerial photography and from the piece of concept art that showed up online a week before last, the coaster takes us into Hagrid's hut at one point. My only problem with that is if we go over to the queue for the Flight of the Hippogriff, which again, just like Dragon Challenge, it was a previously existing Island Adventure attraction that was Flying Unicorn, which opened 13 months after the park opened. The family-friendly coaster sort of up capacity and help with the family-friendly aspect of islands. You get to see Hagrid's hut from that queue, so it's like, can the hut be in 2 places at the same time, or am I being a jerk here, or maybe to put a positive spin on this, given that Dragon's Challenge was torn down and replaced with what we hope is a far better Potter-themed experience. Mm-hmm. Maybe we'll get to see the same thing with Flight of the Hippogriff. Maybe they'll pull down this family-friendly coaster and put something in that's a bit more Potter-specific, though. I would hate to lose that Buckbeak animatronic. I mean, I know it doesn't move all that much, but it really is on model for the Potter films. I mean, it's an amazing thing.
Well, yeah, it bows and you get that chance to step into that environment. But I think we've all been on that attraction just to kind of get a better view of the castle and to sometimes see some construction images. And I went back to when I actually worked in Orlando. We would go to that spot into the previously themed coaster, and it was fun. It was a walk-on, always a walk-on, and then all of a sudden Harry Potter showed up. Yep. And it all of a sudden became a 20 to 40 minute attraction.
Yeah, my memory of that coaster during that period. And you're right. When the Wizarding World was being constructed, that suddenly that went from a walk-on to had quite a wait time. And I remember quite significantly how many people, as soon as they left the station, pulled out cameras. And that was basically then became the soundtrack of the ride. The Universal team member, please put down your cameras. Please put down your cameras. You're going to hurt yourselves. Put down your cameras. And everybody was frantically clicking away to get pictures of the shots of Hogsmeade Village coming together in the castle. And that's a fun memory of 2009, right? Almost
Yep.
10 years ago now.
And then even before, if we're looking 2008, 2009, that area, with the original Dueling Dragons experience, it was such an incredible coaster. It was one of the best ranked coasters in North America at one given point. And to switch it over to a Harry Potter themed, at first we were all kind of questioning what was going to happen, but as more information came out, I don't know. We'll see what'll happen. I'm still holding out hope to actually get into one of the ride vehicles.
Getting back to Thursday's news now, that if you looked online when news of Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure broke, what was kind of interesting was that the online community, they didn't just talk about that, because in virtually the same window of time, Disney Parks and Resorts swoops in and makes an announcement about a redo of Epcot's entrance area, and
Leave a Legacy is going away, and the reimagining of the Wonders of Life, which I've always been a big fan of, having something in that pavilion. It's such an amazing spot. So we'll see. But
Len and I will get into this in a big way in our next Disney Dish podcast, because to be honest, I think for a lot of folks, they're not seeing the forest through the trees here in regard to why Disney is doing what they're doing at Epcot. And also the language in the press release that Disney put out talking about the multi-year billion-dollar redo of Epcot Center. Let's look at quickly at the Guardians of the Galaxy coaster that's being built there. All right. What do you think something like that? Cutting-edge attraction, giant show building. What's a ballpark on what it's costing Disney to build that?
From what I can remember, Epcot, or when Disney's Animal Kingdom built Expedition Everest, it's still classified as the most expensive theme park ride that was ever constructed, and that was over $100 million.
Okay, so let's say $100 million. Now we jump to the other side of World Showcase Lagoon. And we have the Ratatouille ride, which again, it's kind of a clone of what's been done at Walt Disney Studios Park in Paris. A fairly pricey project. Give me a ballpark.
Because it's already been done once, I think you're basically cutting the budget in half, but you're also starting at a location where they used to just have all the huts from all the festivals that go on in Epcot. So my thought is that that's probably a $40 million attraction.
I think you're lowballing there. I think realistically, if you look at steel, you take into consideration the ride vehicles, the track system. Yes, a lot of development money. They don't need the development money because, obviously it's already developed. But
yeah, they've already done it. You just order a second track of everything.
I have heard starting costs for this thing are actually pretty much double what you talked, 70 or thereabouts, and the joys of building in Florida and groundwater and that sort of thing. So this is a little south of $100 million as well. And we have our brand new illuminations. We're getting an interim show, the Epcot Forever show, that has to sort of be in place while they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting for illuminations. So they did the Princess 5K earlier this week, and a lot of people who, as they were running through Epcot, stopped to take pictures of the giant barge that was in the middle of World Showcase Lagoon, already doing work. So new nighttime show, lots of infrastructure, an interim show. We have an estimated price tag there.
You know what? The last one scared me a little bit. So I think I'm going to go, because it's not a physical building, you're putting me on the spot, maybe 30 million?
Creep it up a little bit. This thing has been in the works for decades at this point. There's a lot of development money that needs to be burned off. Okay, so we pivot from there. We're taking out Leave a Legacy. We're moving it outside the berm. We're effectively changing it into the new designated smoking area for Epcot.
Yep.
Then again, we're going back into Wonders of Life and putting what Bob Chapek has wanted for a long time, a black box show that can be changed out seasonally for how much?
Let's put a $20 million price tag on that. And then you look at next door with the the space restaurant, and there's a lot of money that's being spent right now in Epcot from what you're telling me.
Yes, actually, again, you need to put a 1 in front of your 20. That includes the work that's being done on the entrance plaza and the greenery and all of that fun stuff.
But here's my question. Are they putting that kind of money towards the new O Canada movie?
Oh, you're sweet.
I'm sorry.
Your multi-year billion-dollar redo of Epcot, we're kind of well past the midway point. In fact, I think that's the thing that people need to understand is, oh boy, we're going to get a brand new Epcot. It's like, no, they've spent half the money already. In fact, more than half the money. Getting back to the press announcement now, let's talk about what you discovered. Because again, there was a lot of controversy in regards to this. There were a number of people out there who felt that Disney had kind of taken the role of a spoiler here, that they'd released their info right on the heels of the Hagrid Magical Creatures or motorcycle attraction. And you've actually found out that was not the case, right?
Yeah, so with any sort of social media piece that goes out there, as soon as a post is released, you get notifications. So a lot of people get notifications for various reasons. I have Hootsuite set up on my computer, and I actually have Disney Parks and Universal Orlando as a notification. So when they came out, basically simultaneously, it was pretty shocking, but not really when you actually look at the fact that both of the announcements, so the Universal Orlando announcement was pre-scheduled for 11 a.m., but not really 11 a.m. It was actually 11:03:30. Very specific, and it was done through their social media scheduling tool called Sprinkler. And you do a little research into the way that Disney does all of their social media, and they use a thing called Sprout Social. So theirs was scheduled to be put out there at 11:02 a.m. Now, the big thing with social is that you never want to put a big announcement on the hour. As soon as you do that, you're competing with news. So all of these organizations basically pre-scheduled their stuff to go out at the, 03s, 05s, 07s, or 33, 35s, 37s. And that's just the way you get people as they're about to go on a break, or you get news before it's the noon hour. So when they put this out, everyone was up in arms being like, well, Disney broke their new... Well, let's be honest. Disney probably had this saved. And as soon as they heard that something was going to be coming out with Universal, why wouldn't they put it out there? We don't know for sure whether or not that's exactly what happened, but the fact that you're within a minute and a half of two gigantic announcements, it kind of shows that it was pre-scheduled.
Got it. Okay, now getting back to the announcement itself. So
Sure.
we have the language they use to describe Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure is the most highly themed coaster yet. And I'm quoting from the official press release here. First time ever, guests will fly with Hagrid on a thrilling roller coaster ride that plunges them into the path of some of the Wizarding World's most rarest magical creatures. And you were working on a list of those? Or what's leaked so far?
So that the leaks that are out there are actually going to stay out there. Every website that I visited had a different number of mystery characters, especially when you're looking at the fact that Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts are kind of having a little bit of overlap. So I think I would love to see what people are thinking. So if anyone wants to head over on Twitter or Instagram and let us know which of these magical creatures you would like to see in this coaster, and if they come true, we'll be able to credit you. But it looks like there's at least 4, maybe 5 that we have found so far.
There's the rumors about Fluffy, the three-headed dog. I don't know if we can count the Weasley family Ford Anglia as a creature, but I guess you get to see that during the earliest part of the coaster.
And then we saw the Pixies in the original
Pixies,
poster. And there's still a couple more. But I think that the more that this coaster will show up in the zeitgeist and people will start to see the trains move, we'll see what'll happen. But there's probably a good amount of crossover.
Well, here's hoping. And well, we'll get to the devil's snare stuff because that keys off of the actual ride mechanism at a later
Hmm.
show. But again, construction continues. They're planning all sorts of greenery and that sort of thing. And speaking of construction, just in the past week or so over at the Jurassic Park Discovery Center, team members at Islands have begun preventing guests from going outside to the back in the fine tradition of Universal's worst kept secrets. The reason that people aren't being allowed on the patio is they're getting serious about the next coaster for this park. In fact, I think you and I have talked about, all of the site or the markers that are already in place and, that sort of thing that
Yep.
they're going forward with this thing. And now what's kind of interesting is if you drill down into Island's history, if you go
Hmm.
back to 99 and they talk, you get talking with folks about the design of that park. The idea was you were supposed to come through the port of entry and arrive at, again, the Islands Adventure Lagoon, look across the way and see rising up out of this lush jungle area the visitor center
Hmm.
from the original Jurassic Park movie. And the whole notion was this is this theme park, Sleeping Beauty Castle. It's supposed to be across the water, look inviting, and that's what's going to make you schlep all the way around the lagoon to visit this thing from the hit Steven Spielberg movie.
Hmm.
And so you've got that as your view. You're now going to build a coaster in front of
Yeah.
it, which is potentially going to screw up that view. And why exactly would you do that? And kind of interesting response from Universal Creative folks. Jurassic Park is now Jurassic World.
Hmm.
And anybody who's been paying attention to the original Jurassic World movie in 2015, you know what happened to Jurassic World. That this place that, was supposedly lovely and safe and gave you dinosaurs up close and that sort of thing, it's gone totally wrong. It's gone, totally off the rails. And so what better way to indicate that this wonderful under control place is now out of control than a coaster, zooming in and out of this forest where the roar of the coaster tracks is more than occasionally sort of drowned out by the roar of some huge dinosaur out in the brush there. So
Hmm.
this is really about repositioning the back half of the park to, moving it from the Jurassic Park franchise over to the Jurassic World franchise. And I can't tell you who I was talking with, but they were pointing out, so they said, okay, so you've started work, keeping people off the patio, you're getting serious. What are we talking about for a timetable here? And they were like, if you think about what we had to deal with Dragon Challenge, we had to
Hmm.
literally go in, we had to pull down the old coaster, we had to do site prep. That total was 21 months of work. If you go
Sure.
from when it closed in September 4th of 2017 and when the attraction is expected to open, which you were saying, what, June 13th of this year, right?
Yes.
They don't have to dismantle this time. It's one of these things where there is no attraction in place there. There are trees to pull down. There are planters to pull down. There's a little bit of site prep
Hmm.
that needs to be done. And work obviously began last month. From the Comcast side of the fence, they want to open an attraction of size in each of the Florida theme parks for every year for the next couple of years. So I flat out asked, it's like, are we talking a 2020 opening? My source was like, that's a little ambitious, but in house, we're talking about it.
Well, because it would be late
Would have to be.
2020, early, and no one really opens a theme park attraction in February.
Mhm.
So you're probably looking spring break.
So many of the seasonal events right now are held mostly over at Universal Studios, Florida. You have things like Grinchmas and Holiday at Hogwarts, which happen as part of, holidays at Universal, but it's not nearly what they do on the Universal Studios Florida side of things, like Mardi Gras. And speaking of Mardi Gras, on our last show, you talked about how with this year's Mardi Gras celebration, we saw the Universal Orlando Resort tweaking things. In fact, sort of taking ideas that had been popular at the Epcot's International Food and Wine Festival, and like for example, the tiny tasting plates,
Mhm.
that sort of thing, and seeing if they would work at this event. And it turns out they've got another Epcot inspired idea going on here, the Mardi Gras tasting lanyard. What's that all about?
With Mardi Gras comes a number of incredible New Orleans inspired dishes.
Hmm.
So everything that you can imagine, if you can get it in New Orleans, they've basically found a way to replicate that taste and those seasonings
Hmm.
at Mardi Gras. So what they've done is allow you to have multiple dishes and beverages basically combined for one upfront price. So you can buy a lanyard that allows you to choose from. There's three price points, right? So we got the 5 items for $30, which equals out to $6
Hmm.
per item.
Right.
Which, keep in mind, each item ranges between $5.50 and upwards of $8 or $9, depending on what you're getting.
Hmm.
The average is about $7.
Okay.
So when you buy this in advance, $5 or 5 items for 30, that's a good deal.
Mhm.
If you do 10 items, you can actually save even more because you spend $50
Mhm.
plus tax, of course, and it kind of lowers the price down. Now, the big deal is the exclusive pass holder tasting lanyard, which is 15 items for $60. That's not bad.
No. There's a great savings there, but at the same time, you have to sort of factor in what people have paid for their annual pass. But no, I get that. I get that. Annual pass holders, you're talking about a lot of Orlando area locals,
Mhm.
the types who's kind of circle back on events like Food and Wine or Festival of the Arts or again, Mardi Gras. And in this case, a lot of people go back to Mardi Gras because, a musical group that they like is coming in for a weekend or that sort of thing.
Mhm.
But you had mentioned that as part of sort of creating new revenue streams on the backs of these folks, they were also bringing other add-on experiences in. And so, what is this about an all-you-can-eat crawfish boil?
Yeah, that it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Okay.
So they've actually been incredibly popular in cities around the world.
Mhm.
This idea that you can go and get all you can eat crawfish and just really good food all at the same time. You can get a good meal out of it. So what they've done at Universal is for $59.99 for adults and then $39.99 for kids, you can participate in an all you can eat crawfish boil. So it's only offered on select nights and it actually features an all you care to enjoy Louisiana style boil with crawfish, shrimp, potatoes, corn on the cob, anything you can imagine. They also, for folks who don't really enjoy crawfish or seafood, you can actually ask for the chicken and andouille sausage jambalaya.
Mhm.
Now, with that, because you're spending that kind of money for a meal, you want to be able to get more out of it.
Mhm.
So, very similar to a Phantasmic dining package or various spectaculars at Disney, Universal's kind of combined it,
Mhm.
where after your meal, you actually are invited into an exclusive viewing area along the parade route for Universal's Mardi Gras parade.
Mhm.
So there are, I'm trying to remember how many new floats this year. I think five, six. There's
Mm.
six new.
Okay.
And then you get to get some extra dessert portion at that point. So you're looking at the king cake, beignets, sparkling wine, assorted non-alcoholic beverages. You had me at beignets.
Ah, there we go. Okay, now you've created, this sort of experience, and like you said, there frankly there are people who don't like seafood or are allergic to it, but also wouldn't mind while they're there for Mardi Gras, getting a special place to view the parade. But interesting thing again, and of course, the dessert party component, but they found a way to sort of again extend that right with what the cinematic celebration
Yeah,
or.
so when Cinematic Celebration first came out, you and I both reached out to Universal PR. And the
Mhm.
response back was, we have nothing right now for dining experiences, but it'll come.
Mhm.
Well, this is one of those options. So it's the parade, desserts, and the cinematic viewing experience for $49.99 per adult plus tax, and then $30 for kids plus tax.
Mhm.
With that kind of an experience, dessert parties at Disney are huge revenue enhancers
Mhm.
because the people are there anyway. might as well give them a chance to eat as many desserts as they can. And let's be honest, they're not going to eat a ton of desserts. You can only have so many cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
So the party doesn't really stop with the parade, with the viewing of everything. They've actually included the special, experience to bring you from the parade to cinematic celebration and back and forth. So on the nights when they are doing both, you can go back and forth. So my mentality with any sort of specialty dessert party, always go to the website and make sure that you can book it for that day. Now, we've seen in Universal Studios that they do have a booth set up where if they do have availability, they'll sell it day of. But the best example is always look on the website and buy it ahead of time.
If this exclusive viewing area, I mean, I wonder if they double down. I mean, literally, they bring the folks over from the crawfish boil to the same area where they've got the people who bought the exclusive parade viewing and the dessert party, and they all have dessert together. And then end of the parade, the crawfish people wander off, and the rest of the folks are taken over to cinematic celebration. I wonder, I'll have to do a little digging there. But since Cinematic Celebration opened in July of last year, I have to say one of my favorite aspects of the show is when they break out the footage from the first two How to Train Your Dragon movies, which is synced up to John Powell's amazing score for those movies. And speaking of Toothless and Hiccup, if you're a fan of those characters, there's actually a number of ways you can get to interact or at least experience this Viking and his pet nights here at the Universal Parks, which Dustin and I will get to after this commercial break.
Once upon a mundane morning, Barb's day got busy without warning. A realtor in need of an open house sign. No, 50 of them, and designed before 9.
My head hurts.
Any mighty tools to help with this plight?
Aha!
Barb made her move. She opened Canva and got in the groove.
Bulk creating Canva sheets. Create 50 signs fit for suburban streets.
Done in a click, all complete.
Sweet!
Now, imagine what your dreams can become when you put imagination to work at canva.com.
And we're back. So we were just talking about Universal's Cinematic Celebration, which Universal Studios Florida's nighttime lagoon show, and people love to shoot these things with their phones and share them with friends at home or put them on social media. But at that point in the day, most people's iPhones are running on fumes, at least from a power point of view. But Universal, starting just this past week, is starting to address this issue, and you kind of tripped over this story. Care to share?
Sure. So over at Walt Disney World, we've had a product and a service that you could buy called fuel rods. So fuel rods is all over the place at Disney World. They won't call it fuel rods. It's actually known as a portable charging device. So if you ask for where the nearest fuel rod location, you'll get the look of, huh? But if you talk about the portable charging station kiosk, that's where it is. Well, they've been expanding rapidly, not just at Disney, but in theme parks around Florida and in airports and everything like that. Well, they showed up at Universal over the last week. So we now have, there's 6 locations on property, including the theme parks and the resorts, with 4 more that will be coming. And that's just the start. Now, with Universal, it is a little bit different than over at Disney. And I did reach out to Fuel Rods and, amazing people, and the idea of creating something that actually helps people when they're in the parks and able to recharge their phone. Because we do live in a social media world where if your phone dies, you're dead. That's it. You're not there. So you need to have something, and you can only have so many external portable chargers charged at the hotel before you go out. So with Fuel Rod being over at Universal, you can go and use any fuel rod, even if you've bought it at Disney or on their website, and then exchange it when it's dead, and then you get a new one. Now, at Universal, it's different. They've actually instituted a $3 charge for each and every single time that you swap out your fuel rod. That is different. So we're going into a potential changing of a business model, because with everyone having one, they can't really make any sort of money because everyone's going back and forth and just exchanging their old one. Really, at Universal, you want to have this. You want to have the potential to save your vacation memories. So my mentality is always you go online, go to their website, pick up your fuel rod, and then when you're in the parks, just know that at Universal, you're going to have that $3 charge. Very similar to what we were talking about just a few weeks ago with the additional charge at for the backpacks that came in December, where you have to pay to store your backpack, even though you actually can't take your backpack on any ride. So with Universal, there are more upcharges than over at Disney throughout the spectrum of vacation planning and trip planning. It's all about knowing in advance what you will have to budget. So when fuel rods came in, definitely a step in the right direction because everyone's used to them if you've been to a Disney park.
Good to know. All right, getting back to How to Train Your Dragon now. If you're sitting here with your phone and you're filming the sequence in Cinematic Celebration that shows Toothless and Hiccup, flying over Universal Studios Lagoon, and that's not enough for you. It turns out that now through March 12th, there's actually a photo and video booth set up across from the entrance of Animal Kingdom's Actors Stage. And the gimmick is that you can sit on the Toothless in this thing where it's in front of a green screen. Mm-hmm. And what they'll do is they'll film you with your phone and then they'll email you this video. If, on the other hand, you're an old-fashioned Luddite like myself and you want an actual photo of yourself sitting on this thing, they will sell you that. This is in a freebie, and I guess they swap out for the green screen some sort of appropriate background. But that's the East Coast version. West Coast, much more interesting. You chase down the photos and the video of the walk-around Toothless character that's debuted at Universal Studios Hollywood over the past week or so. And it's not in the park. It makes its appearance outside the park. They bring it out next to, through the gate that's near the guest relation tickets windows, just to the right of the arch. So guests who are entering the park can run over and quickly and get their picture taken with Toothless. But it's a really interesting Toothless, Dustin. What do you want to say about this thing?
It hurt my back just looking at it.
Yeah.
As someone who has had experience with entertainment at the parks, it's all about ease and making sure that the actor who is bringing that character to life, also known as friends with Toothless, I really hope that they've got a situation set up within that costume to actually make it so it's easy, because from the outside it looks just heavy and
difficult to operate. I mean, it has great detailing. In fact, there's at least one video that shows it finishing its visit with guests, and it turns around to leave, and you can actually see this tail hanging off of the costume that has the artificial fin that Hiccup made for Toothless in the first film to help him control himself in flight. And I love the detailing, but it just, as slow as the performer in the suit moves, you just sense, oh, this is heavy, and this is, I hope there's a chiropractor backstage. This arrives at the Universal Parks pretty much in the same window of time that the new Kevin walk-around, the giant bird from Pixar's Up, showed up at Animal Kingdom. And talk about bearing the needle in the exact opposite direction. I mean, this Kevin walk-around is on model. Its eyes blink, its mouth opens, its heads turn, it makes the squawk that the character made during the movie. And people are losing their minds in the park. I mean, have you seen them chasing after it and trying to get their picture taken with it? I mean,
absolutely. And if you go and see when Russell and Doug are leaving from their meet and greet and they find Kevin, it's an incredibly moving situation where it's, hugs all around, and it's just awesome. But, you're looking at the difference between the Animal Kingdom has always had those unique types of characters, from the one that's in Pandora to the Divine, which stilts and able to kind of blend into the background. It's amazing how many times you walk through the area where Divine is doing her performance, and people won't even recognize that she's there. So in the animal kingdom, they have that ability to really play on the atmosphere. I think the issue that we saw with what's going on in Hollywood is it's just a big costume.
It is. And I think the Kevin costume, just the fact that there are these little rudimentary wings, which I guess is, you see them move every now and then. Whenever I watch the footage of Kevin moving in the park and surrounded by crowds and that sort of thing, I get kind of nervous for the cast member that's inside, or excuse me, the friend of Kevin, because what happens if they fall? How can they brace themselves in that outfit? Love the look of it. I love what they did with it. And I'm kind of hoping that in regard to Universal, if you look at what they did at Island Adventure with Blue, with the raptor encounter there, and you contrast that with what they've done in Florida, where it's a full raptor costume and it's walking around and no strings attached. I mean, I'm hoping they do the same thing with this Toothless thing, because How to Train Your Dragon Hidden World is being sold right now as the final chapter of this trilogy. But from Steve Burke, from the mouth of Steve Burke, the head of Comcast, all right, he's the guy who authorized back in April of 2016 to spend $3.8 billion to acquire DreamWorks Animation. One of the reasons they did that is the whole point of making this purchase was to get their hands, so Comcast could get its hands on a ready-made set of characters and stories that could then be used to fuel the creation of theme park attractions and licensed merch, which the whole point of doing this was to take the low single-digit returns of the movie business and turn it into an entirely different business for them. Burke was really upfront about this. He said because they were able to get their hands on the DreamWorks characters, they advanced Comcast consumer products in about 5 years. They now had this library of characters they could do things with. And we're seeing what they plan on doing. For example, I don't know if you're familiar with iFly, the indoor skydiving thing.
Yeah, we've got one of them up here in Toronto, and I did a little search into how many locations there are around the U.S., and wow.
Yeah. Well, you might want to swing by there, because right now, for a short time, they're actually offering a How to Train Your Dragons flying experience, where they basically put a VR helmet on you, take you into the hurricane force wind chamber, and fly you around while you're viewing footage from How to Train Your Dragon.
Now, the tough thing, though, I do have to preface this. It is for U.S.-based iFly locations right now.
Yep.
But if you are outside of the U.S., you can either take a trip down to, New York or Washington State or wherever, or, just kind of send a tweet over to iFly and be like, I would like this, please.
Yeah, no. I definitely agree. Oh, and more to the point, if you're more of a I like my feet on the ground kind of guy, but you still want a Dragons VR experience, there's a traveling show going around the U.S. right now. I guess it's partnered with Walmart. You basically get to enter a dragon's cave. Well, I guess that they are VR chairs that are powered by a VR backpack, but you get this 5-minute long journey through the hidden world with Astrid, Hiccup, Toothless, and Hookfang. But that right now, that started in Burbank just this past week, and it's making its way through California right now, Pico Rivera. This is in Anaheim right now, folks, so if the line's still long at Disneyland, go to Walmart. You can go to How to Train Your Dragon. And then from there, heads out to Vegas in March. It's in Arizona, latter part of that month, heads to Texas, and finishes up in Bentonville, Arkansas, the home of Walmart, April 7th through the 9th. If you're willing to travel that far.
If you're willing to travel to Arkansas.
Yeah, why not just keep going and continue to Dubai, especially to Motion Gate Dubai. That's the Hollywood-inspired theme park that opened back in December of 2016, because 6 months after that park opened, they got a Dragon Gliders attraction. And this is actually in the DreamWorks section of that theme park. And I want to stress here that the licensing deal that allowed this to be built in Dubai, happened long before Steve Burke made Comcast pony up $3.8 billion for DreamWorks Animation. And it's licensed strictly for this region. Again, it's a storytelling coaster that allows you to stop, start, turn, pay attention to media, animatronic figures, that sort of thing. And in fact, it sounds an awful lot like Hagrid's Magical Creatures motorcycle adventure. And going back to this Universal Cinematic Celebration show, the whole conceit of that show is supposed to be you're basically getting kiss goodnight from all the characters you've met that day by going to various attractions around the park. So you get Harry Potter, you get Fast and Furious, you get Transformers, you get the Minions. And then in the middle of that, you get How to Train Your Dragon. And there is no How to Train Your Dragon attraction in Florida yet. Just watch the space, folks, because it'll be kind of interesting on the other side of our Jurassic World coaster opening up. And again, with that whole supposedly mission from Steve Burke, the notion of a brand new ride per year, per park in Florida. Be interesting to see if we get a dragon popping up there, or if we get dragons popping up over in Fantastic Worlds, which, circling back to the story you talked about at the top of the show, what do you suppose Disney's going to have in the hopper to counter that announcement?
I have absolutely no idea, because it's as soon as you have an experience like Hagrid's, coaster announced, and then you have Jurassic World announced, and we all know right up the street there is shovels in the ground for an entire theme park. What's left? And more importantly, with DreamWorks, with the story that we had last Universal joint, where it was talking about keeping things in the family, keeping more Comcast style and owned properties. It's going to be an interesting 2019. I think this is just the beginning.
Oh, no, definitely. There's lots of news yet to break, and we will talk about it on this podcast. But if people are in between episodes of Universal Joint and want to hear your dulcet tones, Dustin, where else can they find you?
So I'm over at stepstomagic.com. Trip planning, vacation ideas, ways you can spend your money more at the Disney and Universal theme parks. In fact, we just did an article about the dining experiences at Universal, the best quick service dining. And gotta say, it was really fun to relive walking into Moe's Tavern and getting the Flaming Moe and seeing the look on the guy's face as I asked for the Flaming Homer. And he had no idea what I was talking about. So going into in depth about the dining is just a fun thing for me. So yeah, I'm at stepstomagic.com, Twitter, Pinterest, wherever.
Okay. And on my side of the fence, the podcast that started all, Disney Dish with Len Testa. We have the Fine Tuning podcast that I do with Drew Taylor. We have Marvel Us Disney. That's the show I do with the amazing Aaron Adams.
And didn't you add a new? There is a new one that came out. I listened to the premiere of I Want That. It's actually very entertaining.
We're getting there. That's the one that's kind of interesting because we were able to delve into both new stuff the Disney company is doing and old stuff. In fact, I owe a phone call to a friend to get some info about the early days of The Little Mermaid and the crazy way Disney merchandised that. But I need to mention, because, it's tiny little side of the Disney company, barely worth mentioning. Star Wars, that's the show I do with the amazing Dan Z, and that is looking at Lucasfilm. And we're going to see some very interesting stories popping up very shortly online, because this past week, Disney has done its first previewing of Galaxy's Edge. There were reporters on site this week, and all of those folks I know are under moratorium or deadline or that sort of thing, but we'll start to see that stuff bubble up. But again, I cannot wait to see how Universal responds when the Star Wars stuff starts coming out. But we'll get to that in future episodes of the Universal Joint. I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that Dustin and I will be talking about. in the weeks ahead, so please circle back on the show. But if you get the chance, head over to iTunes and please rate and recommend our show. It always helps to expand the audience a little bit. Till that time, on behalf of Mr. Refuse myself, thanks for listening, and we'll be back.
It's been groovy having you hang with us for the Universal Joint. Tune in again for this and other great podcasts found on the Jim Hill Media Network.